Okay, we're now live.
All right. So you want me to turn the share screen on or not yet?
Not yet.
Okay. Okay. After the introduction.
Yeah, after the introduction.
Okay.
So, so I've let Annette know that we've gone live, and now she's gonna.
Yeah. Now I see we are three of us here now.
Okay. Okay. Um, uh, Wagyu जी का also Wagyu जी की फतेह.
Okay.
I know that there are people out there who are coming on. If you want to just send us a chat, let us know your name and where you're calling in from. Wagyu, we have Kirti Sadnakar Khalsa. Nice to see you. Okay. Anyone else want to give us a shout? Tell us your name. Tell us where you're calling in from. We're so grateful to have you here on the webinar today. We're gonna have a quiet group today. Who else is there? Here we go. Kirti is from San Francisco. We have Michelle from North Carolina, USA. Suki Car from Houston, Texas. Welcome. Welcome, everyone. We're just going to give it 1 minute to give people a chance to come into the room, and then I'm going to introduce Bhupinder Singh Ji, and we'll jump into his talk. Ajit Singh Kong from Avondale, Pennsylvania. Ajit Singh, welcome. Nice to have you with us. It's so exciting. I always love it when I start to see people's names. Ravinder from Maryland. Oh, hey, Ravinder. Welcome. So good to see you. Paramjeet Kaur from Chicago. Excellent. And Constant Patrick from Sedona, Arizona. Welcome, Constance. Welcome to our webinar today. Okay. Well, let me just give a little introduction while other people start coming in. I'll start this formally here. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru
Khalsa, Waheguru Ji ki Fateh.
I just want to say thanks, everyone. My name is Eklon Karkor, and I am the executive director for SeekNet.com. We've been experimenting this year with the SeekNet Scholar Series, and kind of we decided to do a spring session, and then we'll do another fall session. So Bhupinder Singh Ji is kind enough to join us. He's kind of our final speaker for the spring session of the Scholar Series. And I want to just give a little introduction to Bhupinder Singh Ji. He's been a long time author on SeekNet. In fact, Bhupinder Singh Ji, I was looking at your author page, and I think you've contributed like 100 articles to SeekNet over the last 10 years or more. And there's a whole group of, I would call them our Renaissance scholars. Like they're professional men. Bhupinder Singh's background is an engineer. He was born in Burma, what's now Myanmar, and he worked as an engineer, in India and Japan and Korea before settling kind of in the United States. So by day he's an engineer, but then outside of work he's this really ferocious scholar of Sikh history and Sikh philosophy, and he's written over 100 articles for SeekNet. He's published 6 different books. His most recent book is a book called Humility, A Spiritual Journey. He's going to be talking to us about the topic of humility today, but just glancing through, it's this wonderful synthesis of Gurbani and reflection and stories from Sikh history. And there's just this wonderful kind of unsung heroes of our time. They're not like
Oh my
college
God.
professors, but they go out there and they do wonderful research on history and philosophy and share it and preserve it for the future. So it's really my pleasure to introduce Bhupinder Singh to all of you today, and I'm going to turn this over to him. Bhupinder Singh Ji, if you want to share a few words, share your screen, and get us started on this journey talking about humility today.
I'd like to thank SICKNET and Ekunkar Kaur, especially for the support that they've given us and the platform that they've provided us to share our thoughts. And I'm very excited to share about this topic of humility because I am in 70s now, and I've been going to the gurdwaras all my life and never heard this topic being discussed in the gurdwara, and that kind of made me wonder why. So with that, I would like to start discussion on this topic. So I'll do my share screen on. Can you see me?
Yes, we're good. We can see your slideshow.
Okay. So I'll start by talking about what got me interested on this subject of humility. And that was the quote by Bhai Gurdas ji, and I'm sharing the quote with you. Baba Penda Sachkhand Naunid Naam Garibi Pai. So I think most of you have heard this quote before, but basically it is saying that Guruji reached the region of truth, wherefrom he received Naam and humility. So that incident happened in Sultanpur in the year 1499, where Guruji went in the Vain river and he was in that river for 3 days and he came out. So there's a sequence of immersion and re-emergence that has been captured in this painting by Arpana Kaur, which I'm sharing with you all. So basically, what Guruji got was Naam that he wanted to share, and humility became his operator to spread Naam. So if Naam was the objective of the life, humility needs to be cultivated to get Naam. And I can put it in other ways. Naam is the contents of the vessel, and humility becomes the vessel for containing that Naam. So Garibi in Bhai Gurdas Ji's quote is not poverty, because many times we use the word Garibi for poverty. Because here's another quote from Guru Granth Sahib that kind of clarifies that Garibi is used for humility. कर कृपा जिसके हृदय गरीबी बसावे नानक इहा मुकत आगे सुख पावे. That means whose heart is mercifully blessed with abiding humility is liberated here and obtains peace hereafter. There are other terms for humility in Gurbani. Those are Nimrata, Nivi, Maskeen, Manda, Nimana, Neech, Garib. And Guruji spent 21 years of his life going out to different directions in the east, south, west, and north to give this message of Nam and humility. And during those journeys, he faced all kind of situations, weather-wise, you know, hunger, threat, everything. But Guruji wanted to give his message to the mankind, and he spent quite a big chunk of his life on this. So here are some scenarios that I found. We see an absence of humility from the stage, from the podium where we should be talking about humility. We are seeing fights in gurdwaras, and here is a scene from our holiest place, Darbar Sahib, Akal Takht, you can see here. This is from a fight that happened in June 9, 2014. And here's another scene from US. You can see here, it says, for hurt in a large fight. And Guruji says about Naam that there's Nanak ke ghar keval Naam, that there is only Naam in the house of Guru. And as we talked earlier, that Naam can only be inculcated through humility, and yet we don't find humility being talked about. And Guru Arjan Dev Ji has said, Garibi Gada Hamari. So it's like my weapon, it is my club, humility. So, and let's see what Guru Nanak Dev Ji says about humility. Mithat Nevi Nanaka Gur Changyaya Tat. There is a sweetness of humility, O Nanak. It is essence of all virtues and goodness. So we can find talks and books on Naam, but when we start looking for a book or a booklet, Gurbani based on humility, we come out empty handed. And that made me wonder what about other faiths? And I could find books from Bible, Quran, Buddhism, psychology, but I was very disappointed that I couldn't find anything from Sikhi perspective. And I felt unqualified that, I could write something about it. So I was in a dilemma for a long time. Then finally said, heck, what, just do it, and at least this way we can start the conversation on it. Not that I have become humble, not that I have credible credentials, nor do I have academic proficiency in it, but by writing about it, at least we can start the conversation. So that prompted me to attempt this book. So we'll start with how Guruji has defined humility. Guruji says, Hoye tan nitaniya rahe nimaniya. That means they remain powerless even while they have power. They always remain humble and meek. Now, when we see at the leadership around the world, we can see quite the opposite. I'm not going to name the names, but you all know. I'm trying to get the definitions from some other sources and sharing it with my audience here. In Islam, humility, the followers of Allah are those who walk on the earth in humility from Islam. The Bible says God resists the proud but gives grace to the humble. And here is from quote from Lao Tzu, all streams flow to the ocean because it is lower than they are. Humility gives the ocean its power. And here is some Western authors defining humility. Humility is not thinking less of yourself, but rather thinking about yourself less. By Lewis, humility involves a willingness to accept the self's limits and its place in the grand scheme of things, accompanied by low levels of self preoccupation by Cassiber. And people are paying no attention to the best act of worship, which is humility. And here's another quote. Humility is a stage thing. The minute you think you have got it, you have lost it. I really love this quote. And here is a quote by Leo Tolstoy, the Russian author. The sole meaning of life is to serve humanity, and that is only possible through humility. So, is humility a sign of weakness? No, it is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of inner strength, because the human nature instinct is to adopt fight flight attitude. So In Punjabi we say, then pata nahi main kaun haan. So when we are ready to fight, then we will use those words. But and if people with humility will stay calm in all situations, even when they are kind of threatened. Relevance of humility. आपस को जो जाने नीचा, सो गनिए सबते ऊंचा. So Guruji says here, whosoever considers himself lowly is really the highest of all. So it's a little incident that happened with Guru Nanak Dev Ji I'd like to share here. So Guru Nanak Dev Ji visited village of Kanganpur now in Pakistan. So when Guruji entered the village, they were greeted by brickbats and rocks and, get out of here kind of. And instead of fighting back, Guruji says, Vaste Raho. That means, may you guys prosper. So then they walked out of that village and went to a neighboring village. The name of the village is Manak Deke. And when they entered the village, they were welcomed, they were greeted and offered food and drinks as welcoming gesture. And Guruji said, Ujad jao. Ujad jao means, you know, kind of spread out and become, uh, make this place desolate. So this kind of surprised by Mardana, who was with Guruji, and he asked him, I don't understand, Guruji, what you're doing. You told them, Vaste Raho, and telling these guys, nice people, Ujad jao. Then Guruji explained that wherever these people will go, they will spread their hospitality and goodwill. So, but what we see in real life is opposite of humility, that is pride. So pride is concerned with self-glory, and pride is within all human beings along with humility, like a yin and a yang. In Punjabi, the word home, which is combination of how and main, and both words literally mean I. So basically it is saying I. That means it's I-ness, you know. And pride is a universal problem. Pride destroys relationships, but humility is the antidote of pride. And the author C.S. Lewis said, pride is the chief cause of misery in every nation and every family since the world began. And how Guruji puts it, home nawe naal virod hai, dove na vase ik thai. And Guruji says, home, ego, and nam cannot be together in one place. So here we find another way of putting the same thing that we need humility to get nam. In Gurdwara we always hear about naam japo, naam apni zindagi vich leke aao. So Guru Nanak Dev Ji has compared pride to a symbol tree. And in fact, in India, this time of the year, springtime, you can see this tree blossoming way ahead of the other plants. So you can see this symbol tree. What Guruji says about it is, Simmal rukh saraya, at dirag at much. Oye je aave aas kar, jaye nirase kit. Phal phike, phul bakpake, kam na aave pat. Guruji says the symbol tree is straight as an arrow, tall and thick on the girth. But those birds which visit it in the hopes of nourishment depart disappointed, as its flowers are unwholesome, fruits are tasteless, and leaves are not of any use. So you can see this tree which grows in India and in parts of Southeast Asia as a fruit which is almost sized like a table tennis ball or a ping pong ball, and the tree's girth is about 2 to 3 meters of diameter. The beautiful bright red flowers attract the birds who come and they leave disappointed. So Guruji is cautioning us not to become like a symbol tree. Folly of pride. Pride is a universal human problem. Everyone suffers from it to some degree. Pride has resulted in family feuds, war between nations, and we see one going on between two nations now. And it has led to war between tribes and sects of the same faith, has resulted in divisions of the country. We have example of Korea and India divided at the time of independence. It has resulted in refugee problems, as we are seeing now with the Rohingyas, and it has resulted in genocides during World War II and later on also. So here is a comparison between Nimarta, humility, and pride, home. So it's a great character trait, whereas pride is a great deception, and Nimarta believes in a higher power, but home believes in me, I power. Runs life as an independent child of the Creator God and believes self as the greatest. Focus, what can I give to others? So basically, it's helpful in nature, whereas the person with home is always greedy and it is what for me. And person with humility is always thankful in life, whereas with home, one is always complaining, why I didn't get this? God is not fair to me. And the person with nimarta is always pliable, ever willing to learn, whereas person with home says, I know it all, don't tell me anything. So pride is self-consciousness. Pride is like a virus, in summary. It infiltrates, it duplicates, and it spreads. So here's a story from Guru Nanak Dev Ji's life when Guru Nanak Dev Ji visited Hasan Abdal now in Pakistan. So when Guruji arrived there, they were resting under a shaded tree and they started singing Shabad. And then after finishing, Bhai Mardana said that he was very thirsty. So Guruji said, okay, go get some water for yourself. So he went out and the villagers told him to go to Hazrat Wali Kandari, who lived on the top of a hillock. So he climbed up and, met Wali Kandari and asked for water. And, Wali Kandari asked him, who he was, from where he has come. And after all the introduction, he said, well, if you are a follower of Guru, why don't you ask Guru for the water instead of coming to me? So he returned back dejected and then told Guruji, I prefer death from thirst, but I will not go to this egoist Wali Kandari again. But Guruji asked him to have trust in God, and then Guruji picked up a rock which was close to where Guruji was sitting, and water started flowing from the ground. And Mardana drank the water, and then slowly Wali Kandari saw that his stream, his reservoir was depleting. So he was very mad. Then he rolled a big boulder from top of a hillock on Guruji and Mardana. So in the meantime, Mardana panicked, says, let's get out of the harm's way. Then Guruji said, don't worry, be calm, just sit here, we'll be all okay. And then Mardana said, was this a test for me? Guruji said, no, this was test for Wali Kandari. So then Guruji stretched his arm and stopped that boulder, and we can see that rock with impression of Guruji's palm on it even today. And here is that beautiful Gurdwara, and the place is now called Panja Sai, where Guruji's palm is still existing today. So here's another advice that Guru Nanak Dev Ji gave to Bhai Mansukh, who had met Guru Nanak Dev Ji in Sultanpur, and Bhai Mansukh was the guy who had his ships and he was doing trade, and he was in Sri Lanka also. And Guruji told him three things: always remember Lord's name, overcome ego by becoming humble. So, this is what Guruji received when he went in the Vai river in Sultanpur. And the third thing that Guruji told him was, whatever Lord does, accept it as good. So faith makes us realize the external reality that we are just a tiny creation of the Creator. And this was vividly displayed by the astronauts when they went out on their orbit and they looked at the Earth, and that's how they felt. Realization of self's limits and the vastness of Creator's creation results with that visualization. And then they sing, they have sought sanctuary of the powerful creator. When the sanctuary of the creator is sought, it's a humbling experience. It gives birth to thankfulness in life, and the person develops faith and realizes that he is not alone. The creator is with him or her all the time. And when success is achieved in life, the person credits God and not the self. Ah, I did it. Faith leads to humility, and faith develops quality of humility, silence within, contentment, sacredness within, inside, love, admiration, gratitude, thankfulness, reverence, worship, and aliveness. And maybe there are more. So that deep humility and strong faith are knit to one another by the closest bond. Can humility be developed without faith? We will go a little more into that, because when we have faith in the higher power, it can transform the person, making him humble. Person may not allow, person may not follow rituals, but may be spiritual. So, if we talk about faith, it has two aspects: external rituals and inner spiritual growth. Many consider themselves religious, they will incorporate symbols, rituals in their lives, but may not have humility within themselves. Whereas a person who may not be observing the external symbols, but may be humble within. Kabirji said this aspect very clearly. He says, I don't practice any religious practices, but I look within me and constantly salute God. So this is his thought process which nurtures humility. I look at it this way, it's like a walnut. The rituals are like the external shell that protects the inner shell, which is the humility. So, for, with a walnut analogy, the nut is the humility, and the shell is like the external rituals or the faith of the faith. So, Kabirji has given a very beautiful example on how he what he considers as humility. So he talks about you know four analogies. I got a mistake here, but anyway, he first proposes to become a pathway, so that it's a sacrifice of the self for others. Then he thinks, oh, if you become pebble, it can still hurt others. So he says, no, correction, become dust. soft cushioning and not hurting people. So he thinks this is a complete sacrifice of the self for others. And then he says, no, no, because dust can blow in the air and with the wind can soil clothes and the human body. So he rejects it. Then he proposes water, which cleans everything and never gets polluted itself. Although we are seeing pollution now, but he thinks, okay, that's a real example of humility. But then he finds, no, that's not correct because water boils when heated and freezes when cooled. So he sees the state of water is changing based on the external situation. And he says, no, that's not a true humility. Then he says, God is the real pinnacle of humility. And he finds that, God has complete unmatched humility, is nurturing, loving to all, taking care of everyone without exception, even for the atheists. So Guruji says the benefit of humility is Sahaj Suhela Fal Maskini. The fruit, the fruit of humility is intuitive peace and bliss. And people who get humility, how they feel? ना को बैरी नहीं बेगाना सगल संग हमको बन आई. This quote by Guru Arjan Dev Ji, and he says that no one is my enemy and no one is stranger. I have good relationship with everyone. And we see this from Guru Arjan Dev Ji's life. His oldest brother Prithi Chand, gave him a hard time, tried to kill the son which was born to Guruji after 18 years of marriage. But Guruji always said, Rakh leo bhai mere ko. He never said anything bad about his oldest brother. So benefits of humility. Hoy sagal ki renuka har sang samavo. So if you become the dust of the feet of like a humble, then you can merge in God. होए निमाणी सेव कमाओ ता प्रीतम होवे man pyari. So if becoming humble she serves him, husband God, then she becomes dear to her beloved's heart. Benefits of humility. Have a realistic understanding of one's strength and weaknesses. Humility makes better leaders. Humility results in better overall health, both physical as well as psychological. Humility leads to spirituality. Benefits of humility in this life: desire for life of comfort in heavenly lands evaporates, no wish for longer life or fear of death. Desires and possessive nature is gone, wandering mind is quietened. Benefits of humility in everyday life. So everyday relationships are better. It's a better team player in a work environment. And within the self, person is confident, has contentment within, and happy to be who that person is, and always at peace with self. And so how Guruji asks for humility. हम गरीब मस्कीन प्रभ तेरे हर राख what die. So Guruji says, I am poor and meek, oh my God, oh the greatest. So rakh le mainu, save me. कर कृपा जिसके हृदय गरीबी बसावे नानक इहा मुकर आगे सुख पावे. So one in whose heart humility is blessed is liberated here and obtains peace hereafter. आप गवाइए तां सौ पाइए, अवर कैसी चतुराई। 100 नदर कर देखै, 100 दिन लेखै, कामन नौ नित पाई। There is no better wisdom and smartness than to shed ego to win the beloved. That day is fruitful when the Master casts the eye of grace, then bride feels blessed as if getting all the treasures. So how humility is acquired? गुण गावो तेरी उतरस मैल, बिनस जाए हों में पिक फैल. By singing his praises, God's praises, filth of ego is washed off and the all consuming poison of ego will be gone. Here is a quote by author C.J. Mahani, who has written a book on humility, Bible based. And he says, the presence of any humility in my life is purely and completely an evidence of God's grace. From my perspective, I am not a humble man, I am a proud man pursuing humility by the grace of God. Staying humble, it's the only way to keep growing in life. And the word Sikh means a student for life. So we have to try to become humble all our life. And when we become humble, what does God do? Par Brahm Garib Nivaj. So the Supreme Lord God honors the humble. Therefore we pray in our prayer, ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦਾ ਮਨ ਨੀਵਾਂ, ਮਤ ਉੱਚੀ, ਮਤ ਦਾ ਰਾਖਾ ਆਪ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ. So may the hearts of the Sikh be humble, but their wisdom exalted, their wisdom in keeping of the Lord, O Khalsa. Person of integrity will do what he says, whereas the person with ego may say something and do something different. Integrity is possible after examination of emotions, thoughts, words, and actions. This examination is a humbling experience. It enables the person to seek help when needed. It's willing to learn from others, willingly learn from failures and mistakes. So, based on my interaction, this is the only person I know whom I could describe as a really, truly humble person by Jeevan Singh. I'm sure many of you may have met him. And here's another example. Of course, I have not met him, but reading about his life and his books. So when he wrote his first book, Sundari, he started when he was in high school. And for author's name, he put Nirguniharya, that means without any virtues, without any qualities. And when he wrote his second book, he wrote author's name as by the writer of book Sundari. So when he was awarded PhD degree by Punjab University in 1949, in his acceptance speech he said, "In harmless humility did I live when the epitaph of PhD was cast onto me." So here is another example of modern day humility of a leader. So I'm going to share the name later, but let us first read his quote by the author who wrote his biography. And he says, he always made his own bed, no matter where we traveled. I remember we were in Shanghai in a very fancy hotel, and the Chinese hospitality requires that the person who cleans your room and provides you with your food does exactly that. If you do it yourself, it could even be regarded as an insult. So in Shanghai, I tried to say to him, please don't do it. So then he said, call them and bring them to me. So he got all the staff over there, and he called the staff, and then what he said, you know, he said he never, I mean, he explained to them what he wanted to do, and the author says he never really cared about what great big people think of him, but he did care about what small people thought of him. And that person, he's dead now. That person is Nelson Mandela. And here's a picture of Nelson Mandela. And here's another example from history. Sorry. So it's inventor Samuel Morse, who was once asked if he ever encountered situations where he didn't know what to do. Morse responded, "More than once. And whenever I could not see my way clearly, I knelt down and prayed to God for light and understanding." And you can see Morse's invention is the telegraph, and that was so important, you know, during Second World War time. Of course, it is out of date now with the new technologies. And here he saying, "I have made a valuable application of electricity not because I was superior to other men, but solely because God, who meant it for mankind, must reveal it to someone, and he was pleased to reveal it to me." And here is Samuel Morse, inventor of telegraph. And the person of humility is always self-confident, self-controlled, and open to input from others. So, in the end, I'd like to share a little bit about the book. So, here's the cover of the book. This is the picture of Guru Nanak Dev Ji with Mardana and Kareem. And you all know the story where they presented a bowl full of milk, and Guruji put a jasmine flower in it. And here are the chapters in the book. So, humility defined, relevance of humility, epitome of humility, Guru Nanak Dev Ji, Guru's practices of humility, part 1, which covers the first 5 Gurus, and the part 2 covers the next 5 Gurus, folly of pride, faith leads to humility, pinnacle of humility, benefits for humility, prayers for humility, humility during trials of life, cultivating humility, suggestions from Gurbani for cultivating humility, and let's all try to imbibe humility in our life, spread Guruji's message of humility, and create more Sikhi-based resources based on humility for the entire mankind. And with this, I conclude my presentation. Thank you very much, and I will stop sharing my screen now. I'm not sure how I'm doing from time angles.
You're doing well. The presentation was very insightful and wonderful. Bhupinder Singh Ji, thank you so much. We still have a good 15 minutes or so left in our webinar. So if anyone wants to ask any questions, please type your questions into the Q&A side. You know, I felt very humbled, honestly, just listening to it. I mean, I appreciated that you really broke it down, what humility is, how what it calls us, how it calls us to behave as people, and that it's universal, right? That it's not a Sikh concept; it's truly a universal concept. It's in Gurbani, it's in Sikh history, but then it's in these other places. And you know, I love that you brought in Morse, Samuel Morse, like very, it's really very thorough and a lot of food for thought. A lot of food. I feel like I need to make a list of things I need to start integrating into my own practice now from that from that talk.
Thank you. We all need to incorporate humility, and if once it is reflected in our lives, it will be reflected in our gurdwaras, and then from there it will spread to the entire mankind.
So, and so thank you to all of our attendees who are here. Does anyone have a comment or a question they want to share? Again, you can type it in the chat. You can type your comment or question in the Q&A area, um, whichever you choose. So we'll just wait and see if anyone has any questions. Um, so, so Bhupinder Singh, let me ask you: was the topic of humility? You know, you mentioned when we first started that you're in your 70s now. So, is it something that's coming up for you as you're getting older, or has this been something you've thought about your whole life?
No, I think it came. The thought came much later in life.
Okay. What kind of what inspired you to start? Like, is there something that happened in your life and for yourself that all of a sudden this became not all of a sudden, but that it became a more important subject?
Well, I mean, one day, Kirtan was being sung, and the quote that I shared from Bhai Gurdas, it was being sung, and I said, huh, how come I haven't heard about this all my life?
Oh wow.
So that kind of made me wonder and start looking, and I was hoping that I'll find something by Veer Singh. I couldn't find anything, so I don't know if anybody knows any of the Pai Veer Singh writing about humility. I'll be really anxious to know because I really admire his writing, and you know,
Okay.
there's a lot to learn from him.
All right. So here's a question from Gagandeep Singh for you. Um, Normally we hear "Don't be a doormat." How does this reconcile with being humble as per Gurbani? Is it,
There's a quote.
that being a doormat is acceptable, or is that, how do you reconcile "Don't be a doormat" with humility?
Well, there is a in Guru Granth Sahib there is a quote by uh, Sheikh Farid where he says you have to become like a doormat. So I can't recollect that quote right now, but basically he's saying if you want to be be accepted in the court of God, then you become like a doormat, where people, I mean, clean their feet before entering the place of worship.
Okay. So that's interesting. So, like, we have in our common language, like, "Don't be a doormat," and then Sheikh Farid is saying, "No, no, be a doormat." That's actually one way
Become a
to
doormat. Yeah. So contradiction.
Okay. Here's another question. Uh, is 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 humility about taking responsibilities for one's failing, or about attributing the outcome to Waheguru, or both?
Both.
So if we have if we have some kind of failing in life,
Yeah.
does humility mean I take responsibility for it, or I just say it's all God's will, it's Waheguru's will, or is there a combination? What's your
Well,
view on that?
Well, I mean, there'll be two sides of this coin. That means, okay, first there's a failure. So, first thing is acceptance. Yes, I had a failure. And then let me see what I can tweak or change to see if it can be translated into success. So, try again, try again, try again. If it is not, well, then it was meant to be this way. So, accept it as Guru's, God's will, and say, well, it was not meant to be. So I will say it's both sides of the coin, go
Right.
together.
So that reminds me of Guru Nanak saying "Ape bija pe hi khao," and then Nanak hukami hawal
Ah,
jao.
well, yes, absolutely right.
So that you've got to take responsibility for our actions because we do reap whatever we sow, but there is this bigger hukam that we're surrendered to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. You put it beautifully.
So Sharanjit commented that doormat and Grabani is figurative, and I would appreciate that comment. Let me see. There's another question that comes in. Um, so we're so I mean, I want to explore this. Just we have a couple more minutes left together because clearly the Khalsa were not doormats when they stood up to in self defense, right?
Yeah.
And
No.
so, I often think about Guru Gobind Singh putting the gold on his arrow as, is that an act of humility? Like
Yes.
saying that even, how would you talk about that, Bhupinder Singh Ji? I'm just curious.
Well, I mean, Guru Gobind Singh Ji's life, we can see, it was full of challenges. And he always rose to the challenge, and no matter what the situation was, how difficult the situation was, he was never, ever, you know, put down by the situation. He always was in high spirits, if I put it in those words, So even if you read the Safarnama by Guru Gobind Singh Ji, which he wrote to Aurangzeb,
Mm.
he clearly spelled it out. The whole Zafarnama tells us that, you may have power, you can try to crush me, but, you cannot, because Huma bird is over my head, and Huma bird, he referred to Vaheguruji, so you cannot, destroy me in any way, no matter what you try.
So so humility doesn't mean not having the strength to stand up for truth, right? Like, because that's what
Absolutely right.
he's doing.
Yeah.
He's
Well, I
calling
mean,
Aurangzeb out on his lies and his deception, and what is that line? I'm still coiled here like a snake, ready to strike from the
yeah,
river.
no, you see how many battles Guru Har Gobind Sahib fought, and they were all in self-defense.
Right, exactly.
Similarly, Guru Gobind Singh Ji fought many battles. They were always in self-defense. So it was never that now I am, I have my power. I'm going to use it to, build an empire or usurp a kingdom and every time they won, even after the victory, they never took the land or the throne of the rulers. So they, after victory, they left the place. So obviously their motive was not, getting the kingdom or getting the king out of the palace there. They just wanted to take care of the situation and move on.
So, Bhupinder Singh Ji, some people are asking where to get your book. Here's the book Humility. Where
Yeah.
do people find it if they'd like to get a
Well, I
copy?
guess I mean, it's not in the market, so I have copies that I can mail to the people interested in it, and if they can give me their name and address, and I'll be happy to mail them.
Okay, so um, uh, do you want people to email SeekNet and we'll forward you that information, or do you want us to put your email address in the chat for people
Yeah,
to?
I would think that will be easier. Just put the email address on the chat, and that way anybody who wants a book can get in touch with me, and I'll be happy to mail them.
Okay, let me get your email address and I'll put it in the chat. In the meantime, we have another question.
Uh-huh.
How do you differentiate between having self-respect, sometimes called ankh, and being humble? Or do you draw a line, or is that allowed per Gurbani?
That's a difficult one. Well, I mean, self-respect is, you don't allow yourself to be humiliated by a person, but it doesn't mean that you do not assert your point of view, or you do not uh, say that, listen, there is another way of looking at it. Can you try to look at it from this way and see a different perspective?
Okay. I have, here's another one. Okay. As a Western Sikh man, do you think the gurus would expect every man to pursue military service at least once in their lives? And should I incorporate this into my life as well?
Well, uh, joining the military is one of the venue to become a warrior in life. But you don't have to join military to become a warrior. You're a Sikh, so you're a warrior, warrior for life. So the struggles in the life are the battlefield where you have to fight your battles. Not everybody is destined to be to be a warrior. I remember incident of Bhai Kanhaiya, where he was in Anandpur Sahib, and that time there was the Anandpur siege, fort siege, and he asked Guruji that he wanted to fight like the rest of the warriors, and Guruji said, "No, you do your job. Your job is to take care of giving water to the people and serving them. So that is your battle." And we know what happened. People complained that, hey, we are knocking out the enemy and he is reviving them. Then Guruji said, okay, bring him to me. And he asked. Then Guruji said, I am not giving water to any enemy. I only see you in the face of the person I'm giving water to. So that was a battle he was fighting. And then Guruji gave him balm, said, okay, take care of the wounds also.
I mean, there's
So I think
all
that should
kinds of
answer.
fights, right? Gee, there's all like every life has its unique challenges to face, and and I think that that's a wonderful story because the real fight is, can we be kind no matter what? I mean, Baikane was being kind when people were killing each other, and the Guru said, "Be even more kind. Here, let me give you a balm so you can
Yes,
heal these guys, not
yes,
just give them water."
yes.
Oh, okay. Any other? We have just a couple of minutes left. Are there any other questions? I just want to say, Bhupinder Singh Ji, I've really enjoyed your articles on SeekNet all these years, and you've been
Thank you.
just a wonderful. Whenever you submit something, it's interesting, it's new, it's different, and it's a treasure, and we're so blessed that we get to share these things. So I was so glad that you were willing to come in and be
Thank
one
you,
of
my
my
pleasure.
scholars
My
for
honor.
the SeekNet Scholar Series. Thank you for sharing your
I'm
wisdom.
very, I'm very happy to have a platform to share with others.
Yeah, yeah.
And that is why I'm a big SickNet supporter too. I like to.
And we're grateful for that. We're grateful for that. So all of you, I put Bhupinder's email in the chat. You can contact him for the book. Check out SeekNet. Check out his articles. They're great. And any other comments or questions? Otherwise, we'll wrap this up. Yeah, we're really happy to be able to do this.
I mean, I'm glad that we did it within the time. I was kind of worried. Sometimes I wanted to rush through.
No, the pace was great. It was great. It worked really well. Okay. Well, everyone have a great rest of your day or your evening wherever you are in the world. Thank you for joining us. And I just want to say, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa.
जी का खालसा
Right.
वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह.
All right. Thank you all. And so I'm
Thank you.
going to stop us. We're going to stop broadcasting.